Good afternoon, passengers. Welcome to Martel Air. My name's Amanda, and I'll be your pilot for today. We're just beginning boarding for flight number 29 from East Sale to Mount Beauty, so grab your seats while I finish up the last steps of the pre-flight inspections of this DeHavilland Caribou, named Caribou, the workhorse of the Martel Air fleet. Before engine start checklist. Parking brake handle set. External light switches are off. Warning light switch bright. DC generator switches on and guard. AC inverter switch off. Boost pump switches off. Fuel selector knob normal. De-icing switches off. Oil dilution switches off. And prop feather knobs off. Overhead panel. Carpet levers cold. Flaps lever up. Ignition switches are off. Taxi lights are off. Landing lights off. Throttle levers closed. Prop levers max increase. Mix levers idle cutoff. Gas lock handle locked. Landing gear handle down. Aft electrical panel. Circuit breakers are in. Cargo door switch off. Before engine start checklist complete. Good afternoon, passengers. The weather today is nice and sunny, and we'll be cruising at an altitude of 8,000 to 10,000 feet, flying over the southern mountains of Southeast Australia. Your cabin crew today is me, assisted as always by my co-pilot, Wing Commander Lamington, and your emergency exits are located to the back of the cabin where you enter the plane. I also have many doors up here by me, and if you see me leave, please follow me quickly. Our in-flight catering services are provided by our wonderful passengers, so I hope you packed something interesting. We also have a coffee machine in the cabin near the cockpit door for those who'd like to support the channel and Wing Commander Lamington's dog treats habits. Engine start checklist. Right hand engine battery switch on. Throttle levers cracked open. Right hand boost pump normal. Prime switch right. Master start on. Prime switch off. Mixtures auto lean. Start switch right. Right hand ignition to both. Master start off. Start switch off. Throttle lever set for 800. Right hand boost pump off. Oil pressure check. Right hand engine started. Left engine start checklist. Battery on. Throttle lever cracked open. Left boost pump on. Prime switch left. Master start on. Prime switch off. Mix lever, auto lean. Start switch. Left ignition, both. Start switch off. Master start off. Throttle set for 800. Mixture lever, auto rich. Boost pump off. Oil pressure check. Left hand engine started. Engine start checklist complete. We're now ready for departure, so please fasten your seatbelts and turn off your devices apart from those used to watch this stream. Thank you for flying Martel Air. We hope you don't die. After start checklist. Throttle levers set for 1000. AC inverter switch. Main. Panel lights. Set. Compass alignment. Okay, so we're facing just to the east of south. 1 point east to south, 1 point east to south. Compass alignment check. Pilot compass to slave. Pilot nav source to GPS. GPS panel brightness. Set. GPS system. Is activating. Flight plan. Origin set. Destination set. Hydraulic pressure check. Brake pressure check. Knees check. After engine start checklist complete. Engine run up checklist. Area around and behind aircraft, so going to external cameras. Okay, area outside aircraft clear. Parking brake handle set. Mixture levers auto rich. 1200 RPM checks. Set for 1200. Oil temperature comes to at least 40 degrees. Check, check. Flaps to full extension. External cameras. Flaps, full extension, check. Flaps lever up. And pitot heat switch on. 1900 RPM checks. Gust locks off. Throttle levers set for 1900. Prop levers, minimum decrease. Drops to approximately 1200 check. Prop levers, max increase. 2200 RPM checks. Throttle levers set for 22. Manifold pressure approximately QNH. Check. A little high, but I think the QNH is a little high. Thrust gauges match. Check. Weather checks. Return to 1900. Left hand feather. RPM drop is as required. Feather off. Right hand feather. Confirm drop. And feather off. Prop levers. Max increase. Throttles to idle. Approximately 600 RPM. Check. Gust lock handles locked. Engine run-up checklist complete. Before departure taxi checklist. Rear doors are closed. Closing. Okay, cargo door closed, ramp closed, cargo doors, ramp and cargo switches off and guard, cargo door switch off, cabin lights on, no smoking light on, seatbelt light on, cockpit and cabin heating systems. It's approximately 19 degrees, but we will get that on just to set a bit of a minimum for people's comfort. I think about 70 Fahrenheit will be nice. De-icing switches not required. Taxi lights on. Wing and tail lights. That is that switch. Wing and tail lights on. Flaps lever is up. Taxi clearance. Sail tower, sail ground, Martel 29, ready to taxi for north departure with information November. Taxiing hold short, runway 27 via taxiway Charlie, cross runway 04, Charlie, Martel 29. Taxi clearance check. And parking brake. When ready to taxi will be released. Before departure taxi checklist complete. And parking brake released. And we will need to go backwards a little, just to not run this guy over. Nope, that's not backwards. Okay, that's just not functional at the moment. Actually, one moment while I check why that's not working. Anyway, that should currently be a toggle switch. There we go. Anyway, that is apparently just the control system being a bit silly. But now that we are out of the silly little situation that Flight Sim decided we were stuck in, and during taxi brake test, confirm brake function. Here is a runway. That is taxiway at Charlie. This is runway 04, which we have been cleared to cross as it is not the active. There's a couple of other planes active on the taxiways at the moment, but they should be coming up behind us rather than anything more exciting. That is the exit stop bar. And here is the entry stop bar. Okay. Before takeoff checklist, parking brake, set, altimeter QNH, set, elevator trim in takeoff range, set, GPS system ready. Set, check. Carb heat levers cold. Prop levers max increase. Mix levers auto rich. Fuel boost pumps on. Fuel tank selector normal. AC inverter main. DC generators on and guard. Anti-collision lights on. Landing lights on. Engine instruments, no warning lights. Check. Fuel quantity, check. Flaps lever. We are doing a fairly heavy takeoff, so let's go with 25. Flaps, check. Takeoff clearance. Sail tower, Martel 29, ready for departure to the north at runway 27. Cleared for takeoff, runway 27, Martel 29. Takeoff clearance check. Gust lock unlocked. Parking brake. Release. And we've got a couple of planes coming in for a landing soon, but we've got the clearance. The plane is fairly heavily loaded at the moment. It's quite a bulky cargo run down to Mount Beauty that we've decided to do, just because that makes the flying a little more interesting. But we've got a nice long runway, and just a little bit more flaps than we would otherwise take. So, throttle levers to the maximum. .70 knots. Rotate. Gear up. Continue for north departure, Martel 29. Okay, we're aiming for 74 knots for maximum climb. There is 500 feet, so we are easing off the climb until we reach 105. One step of flaps up. Stabilize. Got the notch of flaps up. And stable. Flaps retracted. And there's our climb speed. Throttle levers into meter range, drop RPM into meter range. And we can climb a little more briskly than that. Taxi lights off. And beginning our turn. Going to 123.3 Martel 29. Sail approach, Martel 29 is type DeHavilland Caribou, 5 miles west of sail, coming through 1900 feet, request flight following. Score 4712, Martel 29, Wing Commander Lamington, if you could enter that into the system. Radar contact acknowledged. Martel 29, traffic not in sight. And there's our nav path. Heading. Lovely. Now we start to trim it out for the climb. It's going to be a fairly slow climb to get us up to our cruising altitude of at least 8,000 feet, because we are carrying, I believe, 3,300 kilos of cargo, which is quite something. And the engine torque, of course, wants us to roll over. Cruise climb checklist. Throttle levers remaining in METO range. Prop levers in METO range. Mixtures auto rich. Airspeed aiming for 105. Carb heat levers not required. De-icing switches not required. And landing lights off. More aileron trim. See if we can actually trim this out to get the climb. Ooh. Too much aileron trim. Interesting. But the pitch trim is looking about right. The aileron trim again wants to come back to the center a little. There we go. And we're climbing at about 1,000 feet per minute. A little less now. And as the air gets thinner, we can come up a little bit on the throttles just to maintain the manifold pressure. A little bit down on the pitch trim. And it's 75 nautical miles to Mount Caribou. There we go. Nice and balanced. Keeping the speed nicely, keeping the climb nicely, a little bit of a roll tendency that we can trim out. 5,500 feet. Roll a little bit overcorrected. And there's 6,000 feet. Engines are running nicely, quite loudly, as is always the case when we're flying the lovely Caribou. So part of the reason that we're aiming for 8 to 10,000 feet on our cruise altitude today is that as we're flying into the mountains, we have a minimum sector altitude of 7,000 feet. So if we don't get to 7,000, we might get to some crunchy cumulogranite sort of times. Of course, none of the mountains actually get above 6,000 feet, but we set the minimum altitude above the terrain rather than at the terrain, because you're meant to be able to fly at the minimum altitude. Slow, methodical joys of climbing in a heavy aircraft. We've drifted a little bit to the left of our desired course, but that's easy enough to correct gently. We're going well with the climb speed, which is lovely and trimmed. Hello, Piney Tree! We are doing another heavy cargo run with the DeHavilland Caribou. This time, since we ended up in East Sail last time, this time we are flying back up to Mount Beauty, which is that little mountain airport. Time zone conversions. Did you change daylight savings recently? A bit quiet compared to the plane noises. I think that will be because I'm flying the Caribou. Let me... How's that for comparison of my noise to the aircraft's noise? I've just dropped it down a little bit more on the aircraft side. Part of the thing there is that the Caribou is just a much louder plane. The Cessna, with its modern turbine and all of its luxuries, is nothing compared to the giant radial engines out both sides of the windows here. Like, the reason I'm a little bit harder to hear is out there. But yes, as I was saying, we are just climbing up to... Oh, I think we'll stick to 9,000 feet for most of the flight. That's a nice balance between things. Okie dokie. Well, if I am also a little quiet and the plane is loud, going to 125.2, Martel 29, goodbye. Melbourne Centre, Martel 29, entering your airspace at 8,600 feet. I can also boost my own volume a little bit. Ooh. And as we get higher and higher, that lovely trim to maintain the climb gets a little complicated. So once I have finished settling us at 9,000 feet, I will check the audio settings again if this is still a bit of a balance. Being as loaded as we are, I think that it won't like flying any higher than 9,000. Okay, cruise checklist. Throttle levers set for cruise. Prop RPM set for cruise. Hello, you return. But yes, as I was saying, if the audio is still not quite as balanced as we would like, once I've finished stabilizing us at 9,000 feet, I can check it again. But as we're now out of the climb and not at the maximum engine settings required for that, okay, just checking the engine settings required. So, mixture levers set for maximum thrust at this altitude. And now comes the fun balance of trying to trim this out at this altitude with the wind buffeting. How is the sound as it currently sits? And are you caught up on stream delay, which I think we've run into before? But if I'm about as loud as the plane, that's probably about right. So yes, the plan for today is that we'll be flying into Mount Beauty, which is that little mountain airport that I have such fun with. And the Caribou is quite heavily loaded, so I can fiddle the audio balance a little more. There we go. Hopefully that is a little bit better. It's always interesting playing with those and making sure that I don't max anything out on the audio settings. Okay. I think the previous -3 decibels to the game audio was more for the Cessna than the Caribou. I mean, you know, the other solution, if it starts getting a little bit too loud with the engines, is that I can just increase the role play and shout a bit more. And as we come over the mountains, it is a little bit bumpety. And yes, we are flying into the crinkly bits, and the bits that crinkle even more. So the mandated minimum flight altitude for anything on IFR through all of this is 7,000 feet, because some of the mountains come up to nearly 6,000 feet en route. And that, yeah, the bumpy bits from the crinkly bits are, like, the wind was completely calm at takeoff, and then getting into this is a bit of a difference. So this is another one of those where it will be quite an active hands-on sort of flight. And I don't know if you noticed, but my drinks today are in fact in a heisted mug, fresh from Athens via London. Covered in cat. Oh, did you not see the Great Athens Pottery heist? So, on the Hands of the Emperor Discord, you know how... Yeah, you know how we keep threatening to go to Greece and heist a bunch of ceramics? Well, a couple of the Discord members from the UK decided that flights to Athens and back were cheap enough for a weekend of chaos. And, found a weekend where Plankton was doing an arts and crafts market and basically cleaned her out. So this was while I was at the coast, and you know, with what little bit of internet signal I could manage to get, I saw some interesting posts about what Tiff was up to. Okay, so transferring that to this hand so that I can keep this hand on the controls. Cats. There are so many good cats, and all the little details were scrapped or done with Sgraffito, where you, like, once you've painted the glaze on, you get a little stick or stylus or something and scratch the designs in. So all the details on the cats are textured. And okay, so it arrived full of British sweets just because Tiff was in a chaos mood. So, while emptying it out to use for this today, I discovered that on the bottom of the mug on the inside, it says meow in Greek. I had not spotted that yet because it was covered by sweets. And I am impressed with the packing job that means that it survived going through the postal service from England to Australia after going through the airline service from Greece to England. Yes, there is a thread on the Arts and Crafts channel of the Great Greek Pottery Heist. It's so joyful because all of the international from the UK ones have started arriving at people. So I am rather pleased with the whole situation. Of course, one side of it's now marked up with lipstick from being dressed up for the stream. Oh, Plankton does have a Instagram where the captions are mostly in Greek because that's how it is when you are Greek and operating in Greece. But yes, I may go put that comment on her Instagram because I now have a very round mug covered in cats, and there's so many different expressions on them. Like, there's this sleepy one and chaos. There's so many good cat faces. We got some traffic out here. Can we see the traffic? They say it's at 10 o'clock. And fairly close, all things considered. Martel 29, traffic not in sight. And we are starting to get in towards our destination. Chain of lakes. I can't see much in the way of chain of lakes. But like, if there's crinkly bits and wet bits, then the wet bits would be in the bottom of the crinkles. That may be a river in there. Quite possibly. Yeah, that seems likely as a river. 34 nautical miles to Mount Beauty. I mean, a lot of lakes are just extra wide bits on rivers and are mostly flowing as well. But then again, America has rivers that would count for inland seas in Australia. Like, the notion of a river a mile wide, the Mississippi seems so fake. We get rivers like maybe 100 meters wide when they're big. Actually, let's find out what river that is. Okay, I mean, it's not labeled on the flight tracking map, but yeah, so it's the rivers down there. Oh yeah, 100% agree that the Great Lakes are inland seas and kinda cursed. I occasionally info dump at people who don't know the madness of the Great Lakes. There's a couple of YouTube channels that are really great if you're into the Great Lakes, and look, I watch a lot of like disaster analysis videos because it's actually a really cool engineering topic source. Like the various air crash sources are really good for making you more comfortable about flight, because they'll go into, here's what was changed afterwards that means that this one shouldn't happen again. But there's a channel, Big Old Boats, that does a lot of maritime disaster stuff with a focus on the Great Lakes and how many just utterly bizarre accidents have happened on there, and how many completely explicable, your safety regulations are written in blood, accidents have happened on the Great Lakes. If you want air crash stuff, Disaster Breakdown is wonderful. Honestly, her doing her stuff and being as open as she is, so the creator of Disaster Breakdown is trans, and watching her stuff and just how good her on-camera presence is as well is part of what got me over the line of being able to do my own videos. So yeah, Disaster Breakdown, highly recommended. If you want air crash, like, essentially the modern replacement for air crash investigations, sometimes called Mayday in America. Altitude is creeping up a little, but honestly, in this terrain, I don't think we mind. Engine settings are still good. Throttles are still good. Temperatures are okay. 25 nautical miles. So Air Crash Investigations was a Discovery Channel, back when Discovery Channel made science content, where they would do, first you have a dramatized retelling of the disaster, and then you have a breakdown retelling where they go through what we know about it. Like, so the dramatized retelling at the start is what they knew at the time that it was happening, and then the second retelling is also paralleled with the investigation, so it's a retelling of what we found out after the investigation for what was actually going on. And yeah, there's some really cool stuff. I actually find that it makes me a little more comfortable with both being on planes and with people I like being on planes. Partially, there's a weird psychological effect of it turns plane crashes and stuff into the mental space that you have reserved for fiction, which is wild. Like, you don't worry about it because that's just a fiction thing, that's a movie thing, that's from that show I was watching. But also, understanding all of the things that they've added into the systems to make it safer, of, well, this happened and it was really bad, so that can't happen anymore for this, this, and this. So, you know, you understand why the air traffic radio telephony phraseology aka the stuff I say when I'm in radio talking mode, why it's so fiddled and precise. And it turns out of just small misunderstandings make accidents happen. Ooh, another bit of traffic to look out for. Nope. They are flying towards me, so they'll see me. Martel 29, do not have the traffic in sight. And some of them are, here's where a thing went wrong and it all turned out just fine, which are really encouraging of, ones where all of the crew training, crew resource management, all that sort of stuff actually did what we wanted to, and this turned out all okay. Which I absolutely love. Because it turns out that if it's all working fine, there's a lot of things that they can recover from. And that's why that training exists. This wind is getting spicy. I think we are going to try and hold a bit of a climb here. Oh yeah, but they have, like, most of the channels that, like, there's a few that do these, but most of the ones that do it have stuff on Miracle on the Hudson. Oh, it didn't hit a bird. A bird the engines can cope with. It hit an entire flock of birds. And, like, fairly large ones. They might have been Canada geese. Like, I can't remember the type of bird, but they were fairly chunky. And yeah, like modern plane engines, they actually test them to withstand bird strike. Like, that is the technical name for it, bird strike. But the problem with Miracle on the Hudson was being an entire flock of large birds. When the engine sucked in 2 or 3 of them, it overwhelmed the engine's ability to cope with sucking in 1 or 2 smaller birds. And also, both engines did it at basically the same time. And yeah, the Miracle on the Hudson videos where they're actually analysing what happened, yeah, the pilot, air traffic control, pilot and co-pilot team did everything exactly right, as best as can possibly be hoped, to a slightly ridiculous degree. Okay, so I believe that the valley in front of us is the one that Mount Beauty is the end of, and we are approaching from the end that you can't land from. But as we are 12 nautical miles out, we are going to start a careful descent. Yes, the Mount Beauty end of the valley that otherwise leads to Albury. So, essentially we are approaching from past that end. Like, you can see this lovely lighter coloured valley over here. I mean, I consider it particularly picturesque, but I don't know if it was named for being picturesque or for somebody. And as I am hand flying a relatively windy approach, I won't be switching windows to Google that for you right now, but I am now curious. Attention passengers, we are now approaching Mount Beauty and the seatbelt lights are on as they have been for the entirety of the flight, which means that you should have your seatbelts fastened. Enjoy this riddle and more as we come in towards landing, and thank you again for flying Martel Air. We hope you don't die. So yes, here's one of the reasons that the landing options at Mount Beauty are limited. This sort of mountain, and that one, and that one. Okay. Whoop. Ooh. We picked up speed and the nose trim did not like it. It's not that they're crinkly, it's that these bits are vertical. Okay, descent checklist. De-icing switches not required. Throttle levers set for cruise. Prop levers set for cruise. Fuel boost switches normal. Fuel tank selector knob normal. No smoking and seatbelt lights on. And entering a potential traffic area, landing lights on. And switching to traffic channel. Picking up some speed on the descent there. And yes, that is indeed Mount Beauty. Mount Beauty traffic, Martel 29 is 5 miles to the southeast. Passing through 6,500 feet, inbound to land, runway 14. Okay, we in fact need to drop the speed a bit to continue this descent, because that's getting a little spicy. But yeah, so runway 14 is the one that's used for landings, and the reverse on runway 32 is the one used for takeoffs, and you can see the reason for that just here. It points in one direction. One direction it points down this valley, and in the other direction it points at a mountain. And there are so many mountains around here that I'm sure one of them is Mount Bogong. I'm not sure which one. I'd feel like Mount Beauty should be at least one of the mountains. Doing our nice general aviation check of the field, and it's looking okay. And setting back to a cruising speed. And as it's a general aviation uncontrolled airport, we are listening on the channel, and we are watching out the window. Mount Beauty traffic, Martel 29 is on downwind leg for landing runway 14. And as we're going to be turning, we are doing a left downwind, so we are sticking to the right side of the valley and aiming to stay above 1,500 feet above the valley floor, because it goes up at the edges. Interesting. I'll have to have a poke around and look at that one. If you are looking on the maps and see nearby, you should also see a town called Falls Creek, which is the one that we went to when I was a kid for visiting family and going on skiing holidays. Lovely little town on top of a mountain. One of those weird places by Australian standards because it gets snow. And it does that by being on top of a mountain. I can't remember which mountain Falls Creek is on. We only ever talked about it being Falls Creek. Yeah, it's not all the way up the mountain, but it is high enough that it gets snow, which is just weird. Inhabited, but it gets snow. Just unnatural. Okay. 7 nautical miles out. I'm guessing it's snowing there actively. I think you... I know you said that on the Discord chat, didn't you? It's just bizarre. I've never encountered such madness. Actually, before I turn us towards the runway, I am just going to drag this round so that it is on approximately the runway head. Okay. A full snowstorm sounds like very inconvenient. Now I am looking at the terrain and making sure that I am not looking at it too closely, as the joys of large, heavily loaded plane in this valley. And the reason that we are doing a left pattern is that we now need to step 1, sight the runway. I believe it should be straight ahead of us. We need to make sure we've got the angles. Yes. Once we've landed and unloaded the cargo, we can do the hiking and such. Mount Beauty traffic, Martel 29 is on final, runway 14 to land. I think this would be farmland, yes. It's got the divided field sort of look to it. Okay, approach checklist. Landing lights on, mixture auto rich, props for 2250, and pulling back. What's our gear speed? 120. Okay, so we need to be reducing our airspeed quite a chunk. One of these things is the runway. Which one of the things is that? There's the runway. Lovely. We are in fact pretty much lined up on it, but we are too fast. Okay, there is landing gear speed. Gear down. Coming in a lot too fast. No. Okay, gear up. Mount Beauty traffic, Martel 29 is going around. That approach is what we call hot and high. So I need to concentrate on reducing the airspeed a lot sooner. But step one is in fact regaining altitude, which involves regaining some airspeed. So part of why it was not slowing down is that it is carrying 3.3 tons of cargo. So, you know, extra inertia. And when it won't drop below, like, once I get the flaps out, it won't go above 90 knots, no matter what you do with the engines. But when it won't get below 105, oh yeah, like, this is the part where I in fact just have to, like, speak up a little, because we're going into climb settings. And yeah, this bit I think I'm just okay with speaking louder so that I can be heard over my own damn engines. And what we want to be doing is climbing. And watching the radio altimeter. Now, if I was better at vocal effects, I'd make it sound like I was shouting to get heard over the noise without actually increasing my volume too much so that it balances out still. Because I think this is the sort of cadence I'd need to be using in the situation where I was trying to be heard over the engines without a -5 decibel adjustment on the engines, on the engine noise. And of course the trick with that is making it so that I'm not actually maxing out the microphone. Awesome. So we're heading away from the airport and it is climbing but not getting that much altitude compared to the ground. Doing that vocal effect is really weird. Ooh, winds. Oh, buffety. So, fun fact, one of the things that Mount Beauty Airport is most set up for is glider operations. Because one of the things that is fun to do over these crinkly bits is find all of this up and downy air, find the bits that go up, and ride them up. Because the way that gliders work is you find where the air is going to push you up and you fly into those bits, and you can do cross-country glider flights in certain parts of Australia. I'm not sure about paraglider versus glider. The ones at the airport in particular where they have a launch cable system, those tend to be the gliders. Okay. Oh, there have been cases in Australia Setting that back to cruise so that we can hear ourselves think. There are cases in Australia where you get standing wave thermals, and you can essentially ride them for 1,000 kilometers or more. It's utterly wild. Okay. Look, atmospheric fluid dynamics is wild. We in fact did not do our rejected takeoff maneuver back down the valley. We did it along a second perpendicular valley. So our first step will in fact be to fly over to the correct valley. Because looking down at my compass, I've put the little yellow V marking that is currently pointing basically behind us to the runway heading, but the white arrow that's pointing to the airport is pointing to our left. So to actually make an approach, we need to make those two line up. And that tells us that it is in fact that valley over there. Oh yeah, like, the Caribou is just absolutely dial city. So we have the flight instruments, which are, of course, directly in front of the pilot. So we've got speed, artificial horizon, altitude, compass, radio compass, vertical speed, different compass, side slip, radio altimeter. And then we've got the engine instruments, which are looking out also. So here we've got the engine instruments, so we've got engine manifold pressure, aka throttle, RPM, oil pressure, fuel pressure, carb air temperature, cylinder temperature, oil temperature, thrust output, fuel gauge, little clock at the top there. And then the electrical system gauges, which are important. And then a second set of flight instruments for Wing Commander Lamington, because he deserves the best. Okay, so we're again at about 7 nautical miles and kind of doing an arc around the airport to get back to our approach valley. One thing that fascinates me with the crinkly bits is how you get these valleys that are so long and straight. Like, this valley that we're going to be doing the approach through reaches all the way down, all the way across to Albury, which is quite a drive away. I delight in that trope. I mean, the clock is also an important navigational and coordination instrument. Like, there is a reason that they put them in the plane. Look fair. Actually, my absolute favourite... Oh, the name's short. Okay. The chronometer. Is that better? In fact, a lot of the times they are actually called the chronometer. But my absolute favorite dial on the Caribou is this one directly below the pilot's view forward, where it's got a little needle on it. It's got zones marked slow and fast, and it's got a diamond and a triangle. The short field approach speed flaps at 40 degrees dial. And what that is a very, very, very zoomed in airspeed meter. So when you are doing an approach to a short landing field, which Mount Beauty is short, and you know what, let's do it with short field approach procedures. Let me just quickly get the weight meter. Okay, so we are currently at about 1,300 kilos. That's a bit over 2,800 pounds. Oop, oop, oop. Bumpy wind. So we'll use the 2,800 figures. So yes, I try to keep the flight sim interface out of stuff for the most part. And we have in fact been drifting a little. But yeah, so we'll do this one with short field approach. Because the Caribou is designed to land absolutely anywhere that you need to deliver a military payload. And field might in fact be a paddock, a field. So, if you are doing a full flapped approach with coming in for landing, there are a very limited number, like very limited range of speeds that you have to be flying to make that landing successfully. And instead of trying to remember that speed and watch on the little speedo to the left of the artificial horizon and watch out the window to see where you're landing and how you're flying, they have a very, very narrow section of the speedo that spends almost all of its time in the too fast section. And we are coming in much slower on this one. Mount Beauty traffic, Martel 29 is on final approach, runway 14 to land. So, instead of trying to keep track of all that, you have this tiny little directly in your field of vision airspeed meter. And if you're flying up to 26,000 pounds on the aircraft, you want to put your speed, that little needle there, onto the diamond. And if it's at 28,500 pounds, you want to put it on the little triangle. Doesn't have the numbers on there. It has too fast, too slow, and the target speed. Because that's all you're concentrating on when you're doing a short field landing. Okay. Approach checklist. Landing lights on. Mix levers auto rich. Runway in sight. We are still too fast. And we don't want to absolutely slam the plane down, so we're just gonna, because we've spotted that we're coming in too fast, we're just going to give it a nice gentle 360, and the engines are at idle pretty much. And as the speed comes down and we watch our altitude, this is so much mass to try and slow down. Because we're trying not to descend at this point, which means I want to pitch up trim. Okay, so there's 110. So the engines are coming up a bit, just making sure we're not washing off too much altitude while we're washing off speed. And yeah, the short field approach speed meter is one of the best bits of simplified design of, you don't need to know the number, you need to know if it's too much. Okay. Our speed is now under control. Okay. RPM set for max. Landing gear, we are below 120, landing gear down. Recite the landing strip. Okay. Below 105. Flaps 15. Okay, and yet there we go, below 95, because the barn doors come out. Flaps 20. And we are in fact at an acceptable speed, so there is flaps 25, 30, and flaps 40. And look, doing a complete circuit like 360 is actually one of the standard ways to reduce your energy, so the combination of speed and altitude, without having to do anything weird. Because if you want to reduce your altitude, you turn it into speed. But we were trying to reduce altitude and speed. Okay. Prop levers max increase, taxi lights on. We're a little bit off track because we have some wind. But you can see that the short field approach speed meter is coming alive, because we're getting into that range. And in fact, fast by that meter. Okay, and brakes. And engines. Reverse. And we stop. And now we roll out. Okay, flaps up. Gust lock on. Taxi lights on. And turning off the runway. I believe for Mount Beauty we are going to be doing just a field parking because the paved areas are not set up for a Caribou, but the Caribou is set up for not paved areas. Now, beauty traffic, Martel 29 is clear off the runway. Okay, landing lights off. Anti-collision lights off. Okay. And parking brake on. Attention passengers, we have landed safely in Mount Beauty and the local time is 1:37 PM. Please remain seated until the plane has both come to a complete stop at the ridiculous parking spot we've selected and we've finished the engine shutdown procedures, because queuing for the exit in what is essentially a truck makes you look ridiculous. And there is no taxi checklist for this airport, because turning off the runway was essentially taxiing. Okay. Shutdown checklist. Parking brake is set. No smoking light off. Fasten seatbelt light off. Cockpit and cabin heating systems off. De-icing systems off. Booster pumps off. Cylinder head temperatures below 180. Check. Mixture levers to idle cutoff. Ignition switches for once engines have stopped off. Taxi lights off. Other external lights off. Rear cargo door as required, so cargo door switch on. Ramp open, cargo door open, ramp to full extension. Attention passengers, this now concludes our flight from East Sail to Mount Beauty, and we here at Martel Air hope you've enjoyed your time in our chunky Skytruck. Please wait until the doors have finished opening and you can calmly deplane in an orderly fashion. Our baggage handling services today will be provided by our wonderful passengers, so thank you for not leaving any of your luggage behind. Any personal belongings left behind as you leave the plane will be assumed to be a present to the co-pilot and enjoyed thoroughly. Thank you for flying Martel Air. We hope you don't die. Okay. Ramp and cargo door switches off and guard. Cargo door master switch off. Cabin lights off. AC inverter switch off. And battery switch off. So here we have the Caribou are nicely lined up on the field at Mount Beauty. And let's just get a position where you can enjoy the nice bright red tongue of the Caribou. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. Was there something I was going to be double checking after I wasn't flying? I'm now trying to remember, because there was a lot of talking, but there was a lot of complicated wind. I mean, that's the color grass is. Oh yes, I was going to be looking up if there is a mountain of Mount Beauty. But yeah, that is the color that grass is. Like, it's maybe not yellow enough. I do consider grass that isn't at least a bit yellow suspicious. Oh, was it blue? Must have been a musical reference. Interesting. It is, in fact, not listing a mountain for Mount Beauty. And it was, of course, started as a workers' town for a hydro project. A lot of Australia's crinkly bits are full of hydroelectric projects because the crinkly bits make for easy dams. And look, Australia doesn't have that much water a lot of the time, so we we have to have a lot of dams just for keeping the place with water. Also, while we're, taking this sort of view of the plane, I just want to go over some of the cool details I included in this paint job. So we've got the nose of the plane. It's got a couple of air intakes for instruments, and the landing gear front cover panel is a tongue. So that is a combination of the aerodynamic cover for the front of the landing gear. We squat down here, you can see there's doors here that the wheels go into, but the part that the leg itself comes out of is covered by this little tongue. And also, that's our taxi light. The black circle in the middle of it, which you can actually see the back of as well, that's the taxi light. So when we're on the ground, there's the little headlight that we're going with. And I'm rather proud of the job I did on this little handle here, where you can see some oil smudges on it. So the darker panel there is one of the cockpit escape hatches, and that handle is there so that you can go through it more quickly. So I had fun making sure that was painted up nicely. And yeah, all sorts of little instruments, reindeer antlers that I drew myself, propeller danger stripes that I drew into the livery based on where they are on other liveries, and that is essentially if the propeller starts going. Also, the fact that the propellers are the one bit of silver on the plane rather than being white. I had fun with that. And yeah, so that stripe is really important for if the propeller suddenly disintegrates, centrifugal force says at least one of the bits is going into this line. You'll find that on almost all propeller aircraft where the propellers are off to the sides and could hit the fuselage. Even like military and in camo, they will have these stripes on because they are considered important. And we've got the rubber boot de-icing system, where basically you pump air into those and they flex and that cracks the ice off of those bits. And we've got wing inspection lights on the engine pod, and we've got the landing lights on the wing. Yeah, so if you see any plane where the wings have a black rubber section on the front, that's actually to be pumped with hot air to crack the ice off it. And yeah, getting all of these little mechanical bits to not be just fill color of the livery crimson. Yeah, so here's one of the two passenger doors for when the cockpit, when the rear cargo hatch is not opened. A little bit of my own art that I just had to include for reasons. I am very proud of that piece of art. And yes, that is the updated version. There's two versions of that design because the original that was on Redbubble had a typo. I had C instead of she. And there's more of those de-icing boots. And I had a lot of fun painting the metal texture onto the cargo ramp and the safety stripes and the Martel Air Freight label. I spent so long working out how to properly paint this light in exacting detail and both sides of its little aerodynamic and also visual cover, so you can only see that light from behind, and its little white panel to make it reflect a bit better. And its orange power cable took so long to get. There's the other one of our passenger doors, which you can also see from the inside here. On this one, they are labelled as emergency exits. And also, thing that this model includes, because the museum example that they checked, there's just a broom in there, as you do. And of course, one wing has Martel Air Freight and the other wing has the slogan. Actually, if I think... Let's see if it'll let me... Sec. Okay, that is extended. That's standard. That need to be on. Why won't it extend those? Oh well. Yeah, you gotta have somewhere for the broom. And getting the inside of this so that it's nice and metallic. There's your other emergency exit. And another antler. And there's me. Curly bit on the front of the wing. Oh, that is aerodynamic stuff. Make stuff that's trying to be not straight lines of airflow be more straight. And given that it's lined up with approximately where some of the wingtip, the tip nonsense from the propeller will be going, I think that may be related to that. And the other thing, which we'll just climb up on the maintenance ladder, I spent so long getting the exhaust pipes on the engines going. They look so cool to me. Like, getting it to be a proper, like, heat blackened metal, and the yeah, iron for wrinkly winged. Good phrasing. Yeah, getting the exhaust blackening, and the reason I was trying to extend the flaps is that actually continues down the excuse you. That is also on the flaps because they would be in the exhaust stream when they're extended. And yeah, the pink into crimson fade that I have on the wings was fun to do. I mean, it's a plane in an airport, so we'll forgive them. And there's the Martel Air Rondelle on the top. But yes, I had a lot of fun painting this plane. Getting all of the details to line up. Getting this section to line up was tricky. We'll just wave to Wing Commander Lamington. To the little window. There is so many windows in the cockpit here. It's great. And there's another one of the escape hatches. Nicely outlined there for visibility. Yep. That is, I believe, an antenna. Because if you need a long antenna cable, then instead of having to build a structure for it, we've got this huge structure at the back. Like, you get more normal antennas, like the little sticky up ones here. And also, this little one, this little thing is fun. This is the exhaust vent for the heating system. And it's got a little panel to make sure that the exhaust gases don't hit the fuselage right away. But yeah, so many tiny details. It's a lot of fun. And we just climb back down around. Because yeah, it turns out all of this is just handled by a couple of texture files. And if you're really, really autistic about it, then you can repaint things in great detail. Look, temperature warping the fuselage is one of the things. Also, there's just, like, it'll damage the paint. It'll heat up that bit of metal in weird ways and might affect whatever's inside. It's just, you like, the heater for the inside of the Caribou, the reasons it's got those complicated switches instead of the more modern ones where it's you turn on the heater, it's a gas burner. Like, it burns fuel to heat the cockpit and cabin. Cat mug full of energy drinks. But yeah, so I think that is the end of the, I mean, no more than it would without that bit turned on. Like, it's a military plane, so they're not exactly smelling of air freshener and, cabin aircon. Like, you can see the sort of setup we have getting along. It's not like it's high luxury. And half the people in it probably smell of fuel too. Yeah, here's where I'm saying the Kofi machine goes when I say it's up by the cabin. That just says fire and biohazard. That's charming. And yeah, so I love the details inside this one. So yeah, here's the bottom escape hatch where that cool handle is on the bottom. Fire extinguisher, some rafts, various electrical bits. And yeah, like, that's hydraulic system. I don't know what that can is down there. That's an interesting extra marker. More emergency gear. All of our electrical panels. Comms gear, nav gear. Also, the little air vent that's much more the type that you'd see on a Caravan. As in the road version of a Caravan, not the... Oh look, it's me. Also, I had fun recoloring this so that it's the black shirt that I'm wearing, it's the bright pink captain stripes because it's me. And of course, the goodest co-pilot with his snoot to the yoke. And yeah, so there's the internal upwards emergency exit for the cockpit crew. And, you know, if it's too bad, you can all climb through forwards. And it has a canvas strap heavily secured to the plane, rolled up and ready to throw out the top hatch if we need to get off the top of the plane quickly. Really cool little touch. And yeah, just also the massive step here, because, you know, here's the height that you're at when you're standing in the cabin, and there's the bottom of the seats. Thing that's rolled up. So here we have a thing that says emergency slide right next to the top emergency exit in the cockpit. Basically, this window pops off to be a door. In fact, it also just opens. You'll see people just hanging out that window when it's too hot. It's not that small. Like, when you consider that's a fairly chunky pilot seat. And yeah, the emergency slide, that's not the, like, you think of airliner inflatable slide, it's not one of those. That is a rolled up canvas strap that is secured very securely to a latch, like a full-on buckle just there. So if you need to get off the top of the plane, in fact, it's actually useful in more situations than the inflatable slide is, because those slides are very limited and have to be... I mean, one, they involve rocket engines to inflate them, and two, if there's much wind, those just get ripped off. Like, ripped off the plane. So, heavy-duty canvas strap secured by something basically as strong as a seatbelt buckle on one end, just into the plane's frame, and the other end is rolled up and stored right next to the emergency exit. You need to get off the top of the plane, you throw that out the window, and climb down it, slide down it. You might get some friction burns on your hand, but if you're leaving the plane that way, I don't think you mind. Also, this is part of why flight crew uniforms include gloves. And yeah, the other emergency exits are this one down here, which, if you need the emergency exit strap to get out of that one, you could grab the one from by the top, but that does imply that the plane's upside down. And the cabin ones are, this panel pops off, and these two doors on some Caribous are in fact the primary passenger doors, but on this one are set up as the emergency exit doors, because you can't open the ramp without the electric switched on. A little hard. So you have to go up the side doors. And yeah, the seats are essentially canvas stretchers that fold down, webbing backs. You also have for longer term stuff, but also you might notice that these are stretchers with handles on the end. Because Caribou can do a hell of a medevac if you had it in full bed setup, and those are secured to straps hanging from the ceiling. Because that's... okay, so that's, what, 2 bays wide? You could have 9 sets of stretchers... 9 stretchers down each side, so 18 stretchers and 2 seats. Possibly a couple more at the back. But, you know, if you drop it down to, like... 15 stretchers and 5 medical personnel, that's a hell of a medevac setup. And when you've got it set up for short airfield landing and takeoff, I mean, if you need maximum capacity, you'll notice that all of these fold up, which is used for cargo, but also, if you consider, if you're doing a paradrop or if you're doing absolute emergency, we just need to get people on here, yeah. It'll be less comfortable because you're all standing, but this thing will take 3,000 kilos of cargo. And that's how many? Like, that's basically an entire platoon of soldiers that you can just load up and go. I'm really a fan of the Caribou. And there's the no smoking and fasten seatbelt lights. Yeah, that's kind of the thing of, in emergency situations, there are some rules that we're okay with bending a little. Like, okay, you'll be bruised, you'll be maybe a bit airsick, you won't have enjoyed the flight, but you'll have enjoyed the flight a lot more than you will have enjoyed where you were before it. And yeah, when you consider that, okay, so it's not as fast as the jets that have replaced it, but it can also do much shorter landing and takeoffs. And yeah, when it's at full flap extension, it can, like, full flaps, and not 3 tons of cargo. And also you're going full blast with the brakes and engine reversers. This thing can stop in, honestly, a couple of its own length. Like, ridiculously short. Just the one plane over there still running its engines. Yes, I am rather a fan of the Caribou, and I am having so much more fun flying this one than I was with the everything is on the automation, and I'm just doing little bits of it that we drifted into with the Caravan, which I still like flying the Caravan, but oh, this thing is giving me such satisfaction at the moment. I think that might be a sensible point to end things. Thank you for your company, even with the remembering that time zones and daylight savings in both directions exist. But before I completely escape, if I can angle it correctly, there is the Greek for meow in the bottom of my mug. And yeah, so full tour of the cats. So we've got Grumpy, Tum, hide my face, Crimes, Eight Sleepies, I am climbing things and chaos, oh, Food, Tum, 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 Little Black Loaf, and that one is Big Stretch. And yeah, like, so this is the side that's been facing me, which is why we've got the... Some of that is smudges, some of that is cool little art things, like there's yarn, there's... I am trying to do this backwards through the camera, like there's a couple of kinds of leaf. but like all of the details on this big stretch tomcat, that is all scratched into it and lightly textured, which is so cool. And there is a fish. There's several fish, actually. So yes, that is a delightful addition to my collection of mugs, and it is such huggable shape, too. Like, you know that thing where certain mugs are just really, really shape, and this one is just such a perfect fit. Oh, when I fill this with something hot on a cold day, it's just going to be hide all of the cats in a warm hug. So yes, that is my selection from the Great Greek Pottery Heist. And with that, I think I will stop staring into the bright video conferencing lights and probably do the other things I need to get done today, such as chores. But it's been about 2 hours and some excellent company for this, so thank you for making it along. I will see you hopefully next week. And yeah, I was going to be doing some scheming about the other YouTube channel that I'm starting to work on, and it's currently 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so, you know, afternoon into evening. But yeah, so next time I might start talking out a bunch of the other YouTube channel for the pre-recorded stuff ideas that I'm having. It was going to be a thing for today, but then we got distracted by several other things. All right, I will see you next week. It's always hard to, it's like hanging up a phone call. You never want to be... It feels weird to be the last one to say something on a phone call. I have a perfect idea. Thank you for flying Martel Air. We hope you don't die.